So someone comes in and says, she's stable, she's alive, she's breathing. Go back to your homes, return to normal. And then we all thought, whatever. And the next morning, wake up's at 8, but no one came to wake us up. So it was like 9 o'clock at this point. And Cody comes and he opens the door and he says, hey, today's going to be a long day. And I said, why? And he said, she's dead.
Wow.
He said, recording.
Ladies, no, beautiful people, welcome yet again to another episode of Shining the Light. And today, man, I am grateful because I'm joined by the wonderful, drippy, good looking, tall, Jack.
Obscure, yes.
Eclectic.
No, thank you for having me. Oh my gosh.
And absolutely, man. It's a joy to have you, man.
Yeah.
How did we meet? How did we?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the first time I met you. It was at church?
I believe
No,
so.
in college. At our church, we have this giant castle kingdom of a church with no college ministry.
Yeah.
And so me and a friend started the college ministry, and you walked in one day. Yeah. And not to trash on everyone else, but there's only a few people who are really desperate to have a conversation that you can take something from. You know what I'm saying? And so, I think from there we got each other's numbers. We started hanging out a couple times. You started showing up to the church plant that I helped start.
Yeah.
And now we're on the top of a skyscraper.
Yeah, and I believe the very first conversation that I had with you really was on apologetics, right?
Yes.
And you being a lover of Sam Harris, is it? And I think you posted some stuff about Sam Harris on your Instagram
Sam
stories,
Harris,
right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I commented on that, and I'm like, are you an atheist, right? Because
Oh yeah. Yeah, you messaged me like, are you an atheist?
Are you an atheist? Because I thought it to be confusing for someone that I ran into, in church, being a follower of Sam Harris, right? And so that really just opened up this whole other conversations about faith and about, following Christ and about actually questioning your faith and figuring it out as you go. And I think, through the course of our interaction and our friendship and the growth that I believe we've seen through that, then I think, that you have a story that I believe would be so beneficial to a lot of the people who tune in to Shine in the Light. So would you mind telling us a thing or two about you, Jack?
Yeah. Well, before I start the story, let me just, because we mentioned Sam Harris, just so everyone knows, Sam Harris is he's a neuroscientist, but he didn't choose this title, but him and 3 other men named Dan Dennett, Christopher Hitchens, and Richard Dawkins became known as the 4 horsemen of atheism. And atheism's not as prominent today as it used to be. Today it's more of misconstructions of other religions. But Sam Harris started writing a book the day after 9/11.
Wow.
And it was titled The End of Faith. Anyway, Sam is just a really articulate individual. He's very anti-religious. But he always caught my attention. He's the last person anyone would expect me to be a fan of. But surprisingly, I've just been amazed by his intellect. And I think there's a lot of things that we can take from Sam Harris and his philosophy of how we converse, how we argue, and how we really seek truth. I believe Sam Harris has the wrong conclusion, but I think his method is spectacular. But you asked about my story. Without it taking 8 hours, I'm gonna try to condense this with hitting all the high notes. I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas.
I've been to Corpus Christi.
There's nothing there.
I went on a solo retreat right by Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
And it was
What'd you
this
think?
campsite by this. It was for a solo retreat.
It's a bad Florida.
It's a wonderful place to go on a
yes,
solo
sure.
retreat, right? You're going by yourself, trying to get from all the fun stuff.
Yeah,
you
just
know,
don't
the
talk to
Dallas-
any other people.
So you go to Corpus Christi. So that's when. Anyway, I digress.
And so my dad is from Turkey, and my mom is from Canada. And my dad moved from Turkey to America when he was 16 or 17. He didn't have a lot of money. He came with, the story goes, just a plastic bag with a little bit of his clothes.
That's my story, man.
Yeah.
But never mind.
And he got accepted to Rice University and got his master's in engineering. Then went to go work in oil and just got super, super wealthy off of that job. Took a business trip to Canada, met my mom, flew down and took her back and got married and had me in Corpus. He didn't have the money when he met my mom, so
Okay.
yeah, I guess she saw something.
Yeah.
And but growing up was rather difficult. Family dynamic is pretty rough. You know, there's this misconstruction of having a lot of money, you know, must be an easy life. Though when you have a lot of money as an adult, it allows you to suppress a lot of your responsibilities and a lot of your social responsibilities, especially when raising kids. But as a kid, growing up with a lot of money, you're not the one handling the money, you're not the one allocating it. You're kind of just on the receiving end of a lot of the interactions with the money. And so growing up, you know, you're fed all the time, you have all your needs met, and when you get clothes, it's nice clothes, but you don't you don't really get to play a hand in fixing a lot of the problems that money opens up in the family. And so my dad got really sucked into business life. You know, to this day, he still works, and he works a lot. Just, I guess, with a little bit of coming from Far East country, not really getting raised himself past the age of 17, he had this idea that, well, the more money I make, the better a parent I'm going to be. And anyone listening knows, well, that's just not the case. He was pretty abusive. My mom was extremely submissive and rather, she would be very afraid of conflict. And so I was raised with this view of when there's a problem, ignore it. And I have just plenty of traumatic memories of just terrible events that, you know, we would have to run away from the house at night. I would have to go spend the night at a friend's place. You know, Dad would threaten us, you know, all these different things. And we've never talked about them. And to this day, we've never talked about them. 3 years ago, my mom told me, Jack, anytime you have a problem with anything in the family, the best advice I can give you is to sweep it under the rug. And she told me that confidently. And so growing up, I just was very used to suppressing a lot of my emotions, or at least that's what I was taught. I guess it was hard for me to do. I was outwardly pretty violent. I was the only guy, you know, my dad was always at work. I had an older sister, younger sister, and a mom. And I was just so, before I found the Lord, still, I was just appalled that we were so suppressive of just these terrible interactions. So it made me pretty outwardly violent. I got pretty rebellious. I was fighting a lot at home. I was pretty composed at school, but inside, I was just extremely hateful. I hated my family, and I can confidently say, you know, growing up before I found the Lord, if my whole family disappeared overnight, I could see myself rejoicing at that. So it was a really dark time, just all growing up. At school I was pretty okay. It made for an awkward social life. I was extremely awkward. I thought I could talk to all the girls. I simply could not, but I thought I could. And
in your mind, right? You had this.
Yeah, I had this because you see the cool guys, the jocks, and you want to be like them. You know, you envy them, or you know, the more well-off kids, the mentally well-off kids didn't, but I was just desperate to fit in. And so I did end up finding, I was in pretty, I'm not going to say good standing, but people knew me, but they didn't know me for being charming or being kind. They knew me because I was kind of funny. I was funny. I was a slave to trends. So if it got me attention, you could count on me doing it. And that's how I was at parties. I never really got invited because I was cool or exciting. I got invited because...
You sold weed?
No. My friends did, but I did not. I would do anything for attention.
I was projecting my story on you, so I got invited to parties because...
Oh, yeah.
The stuff,
And so, yeah, but I guess the big turning point, the biggest turning point was the summer of 2017. My parents tricked me into going to this boarding school rehab facility for 13 months. And so they told me I was going on vacation. And just this weird, awkward trip of me and my parents flying out to the middle of nowhere in East Texas at this place called Heartlight Ministries. And they told me it was a hospital. I was going to be there for a day. And then while I was in the meeting with a lot of the counselors and stuff, my parents left. And then the counselors broke the news that I wasn't going to be staying there for a day. I was going to be staying there for over a year with no phone, no outside contact. You can write letters after 3 months. It was extreme. It was pretty locked down there.
Would you tell us more about this thing that you went to? What was it? Was it a school?
So it's called Heartlight Ministries. It plays itself off as this Christian organization. It's not. I guess, it wants to be. I have spent a lot of my time meditating on Heartlight, and now that I'm out, and obviously I've found the Lord. I think I'm in a okay place in my life, and I can kind of critique it honestly now. It's hard. It's a difficult subject to address is these long-term rehab / boarding schools facilities, because the truth is nothing is going to change a kid unless the kid wants to change. Unless you can show the kid that there is a life worth living that's contrary to the one he's currently living, he's not going to change. And so I was told, so I'm in this meeting. When I first get there, they're like, well, tell us how you're doing. Tell us about your life and how you feel here. I said, parents suck. I hate my life. I just want to live. I just want to have fun. My parents suck. But it's okay. I'm just going to be here for a day. And they all started looking at each other. Oh, he doesn't know. And then this lady named Katie would look up at me and she said, Jack, you're gonna be here for over a year. And I wasn't sad. I wasn't scared. I wasn't mad. I just looked at her and I said, ma'am, you are high as a kite. And I need to talk to someone who knows what they're doing. And I looked to my left and...
Can I speak to the manager?
Yeah, right? And so I looked to my left at this older gentleman. I said, sir, how long am I going to be here? He said, if you keep this BS up, I'm going to keep you here for 18 months. And at that point, the hands start to shake and you start looking around like, where can I run to? What windows can I break? And people start standing up. And so I eventually submitted. I learned, okay, this is real. And it's a strange place. It's a totally different life. Your freedoms are restricted, but the whole idea is it's technically rehab for people. I wasn't crazy addicted to drugs. I would just take them socially. Just if they were at a party, I would take them. But
what drugs?
Yeah, the drugs.
What drugs?
The most I've ever done was cocaine. One time. One time was enough. I was big with lean because my favorite rapper at the time, A$AP Rocky, got me into it, and I just thought it was again it was just anything for attention. And then I smoked weed a handful of times, but mainly the reason I was there was my anger. My parents realized I was a pretty hateful person, and my anger started to bleed into school. And when my mom started getting these updates from teachers about me being extremely angry and saying terrible things, I started being and a lot of the anger came from a lot of rejection at school from girls. I became pretty dreadful my junior year. So I got sent, and so I'm in that meeting, and I eventually learned, okay, I'm here. There's no leaving. The idea is change takes longer than 3 months, especially for that age. And you can fake it. For people that go to 3-month-long programs, it's very easy to fake it to get better. And then you go back in the real world and you're just back on it. So their idea is, it takes time. So you got to be here for a long time, like 9 to 12 months. And so you got to make it livable. If you're going to be somewhere for 9 to 12 months and you want good change, you got to have a good living. So they make it it's one of the best rehab places you can get sent to. It's pretty nice. There's horses, paintball, water skiing, and like all sorts of stuff to keep the kids feel like they're living. It's co-ed, so there's girls and guys. That way they can learn to form real relationships and whatnot. And the staff members are the real soldiers of that place. $2 an hour, 5 days on, 2 days off. And you got to think about it. You're living 24/7 with these kids, and they're dreadful kids. And the staff gets so mistreated. They were real soldiers there. And so when I was there, I was pretty firm in my atheism. I became an atheist. I was pretty strong in it not strong in it, but I just blew off religion, I guess you could say, when I was in junior high. Yeah, when I was in junior high, I decided clearly this is not the right thing for me. But I decided to fall in with the rhythm of optional Bible study on Wednesdays, optional church on Sundays, because I thought it looked good to the higher ups. If they see me going to church, if they see me going to Bible study, they'll let me out earlier. And there was one staff there named Cody Kirk, and Cody started. He realized that, I guess he kind of just saw where I was mentally, and he packaged the gospel in a way that more or less catered to my philosophies. He didn't change the truth of it, but he changed the delivery of it. He appealed to me logically, less emotionally. He showed me that there are ways that you can reconcile the gospel and the story of Christianity with a lot of the real world. It is the real world. And he started answering my questions. I started getting curious. I started poking around at it. And of course, all the questions began to surface. How can God be good and send people to hell? If God knows everything and he knows people are going to hell and doesn't stop it, how is he good? Who created God? All those fun buzzword questions. And Cody answered all of them pretty great. And so what really got me to change my life was I saw Cody living a life that was so contrary to everyone else's and so contrary to what I thought was cool. He showed that you can be a devout follower of Christ and still be confident in who you are. And that was so appealing to me, to see this dude genuinely happy, to see him having so much fun and living a great life. Not being, continuously hypocritical to the gospel he was talking about. It just completely motivated me. I started sitting front row in church, and there was never a distinct moment, but just over time, I started to give my life. I started to surrender a little bit more and more, and eventually I found myself just all in. And there were, a couple of traumatic things that happened at Heartlight that made me question my faith. If we can get into those. But that was more or less my stay at Heartlight. I was there for 13 months, and around right before summer of 2018, I got out, and yeah.
You told me the story of this lady whom both of you, because the thing about Heartland, right, is
Yeah.
that you have a bunch of kids from various family, right, in this space, right?
Yes.
And then so they're seeking freedom of various sorts, right?
Yeah.
And then you told me the story of this lady, right, who unfortunately she was a victim of social abuse.
Yes.
And then would you?
Yeah. So, for preface, on Thursday nights we do a small group, and so there's about 60 kids, 30 boys, 30 girls at a time, 6 counselors. Each counselor gets about 10 kids. There'll be boys and girls, and so during the week, 1 hour a week you'll do one-on-one counseling with your counselor, and another hour in the week you do group counseling. So all the kids that are assigned to that counselor will meet and just have kind of like a group therapy, group catch-up kind of thing like that. And so there was one girl in our group. Her name was Mac, and Mackenzie Bright. I was never close to her. I was never super, super close. But one interesting thing about Heartlight that I try to tell people is the person you know the least about at Heartlight, the person you're most distant from, you know more about that person than most people on the outside do. Because you're in this closed community, it's pointless to have small talk conversations. That's one of the reasons I'm pretty awkward today, is because I'm just incapable of having small talk, and people go, "Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool that you're so organic," and until you realize how much you really need to be able to have small talk, and so people think, "Oh, he's so organic. He can have these great conversations." I wish I was capable of having less awkwardly, but anyways, so at Heartlight, even though I was never close to Mac, you still have these very intentional conversations because there's no point in having small talk. You're both in rehab. You're both, my favorite movie is called Dog Pound, and there's this amazing scene. It's basically the scene it's a movie about following the lives of 3 kids in juvie, and they're all getting lined up for dodgeball, and they say split into 2 groups. And, all the black people go to one side, all the white people go to another side. And the coach is like, the dodgeball coach is like, y'all are all dogs and y'all all smell the same. Mix this up, and he says it a lot more vulgarly. But that's how it was. You're all stuck in Heartlight. You're all there for a reason. No one's there on accident. So you might as well talk about more real topics. So I say all that to say I wasn't super close to Mac, but not being close to someone in Heartlight, you might as well be closer than you would be in the real world. But anyway, so we go to small group. I'm going to avoid saying other names because this is pretty dramatic. It was her birthday. It was her 16th birthday. And we start going around, highs and lows of the week. And I say, us guys, we're kind of separated from them during the week, so we don't really know what goes on the girls' side. And they start going around, and the girls, it was very strange. The first girl goes, she says, my week's going okay. There's one girl on campus who's trying to jeopardize my program, but I'm really about it. I'm not going to let her take me down. And then the next girl goes, yeah, my week's good. There's one girl on campus who's really causing a lot of drama, but I'm so much more above that. I'm not going to be a part of that. And next girl goes, yeah, my program's doing really great. I'm really happy I'm here. There's one girl on camp, and then they're talking about this one girl. And finally it gets to Mac. Mac, how was your week? She says, my week is okay. I'm chilling. And then it kind of clicked with all of the guys at once. We all started looking at each other. Oh my gosh, they're talking about her. Right in front of her. She's right here in the group, and they're all kind of talking about her. So we go on with the group, and Mac stands up. She says, I'm going to be right back. And Katie, the counselor, says, well, you can't just leave. We're about to cut your cake. She says, no, I'll be right back. And she runs out. And so we send a guy staff to go follow her. You can't be alone. She runs into another house where there's another group happening. So the guy staff comes back and says, she's with another group. She's fine. And so group goes on like normal. And after group, I'm at the top of the hill. I'm looking at the house that Mac ran into. And like the scene in the movie, all these people run out of the house screaming. I'm so confused, what's happening? And I see one girl pick up a rock and throw it through a window, and I'm just, what is happening? Because, there's such a rhythm to Heartlight. There's such a detailed rhythm that never gets broken. And this was definitely out of rhythm. And this girl was my girlfriend at the time. I say, go down, see what's going on. She comes up, she tells me, she says, I think Mac tried to kill herself.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to be honest. I was so unfazed by that.
Wow.
And let me tell you why. All of the girls there, every single girl there. So the guys are in there for, drugs and being violent and just being jocks and, rebellious little boys. The girls typically have a longer stay there. They're typically there for around 15 months. And theirs are usually a lot more traumatic and a lot more heavy. So a lot of them are the victims of sexual abuse. A lot of them have been raped many times by family members. And that has led them into living pretty rough lifestyles, getting really into drugs at young ages. And so a lot of the girls there, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, almost every single girl there, I can't remember a girl that didn't at one point have cuts on the top of their arms or the top of their legs. A lot of girls you could expect, at one point in their stay to be on self-harm restriction. So you get pretty numb to it. When you hear, oh, they tried to kill themselves, you can usually translate that to, oh, they cut the tops of their arms. So you get really numb to that. You'd see a lot of girls with cuts all over, and you just ignore it. And so when I heard Mac tried to kill herself, this is not good, but I was just, what's new? Why is everyone making
Very
this big...
desensitized to that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I literally told my friend who was my guy friend who was standing next to me, I said, why is everyone making such a big deal out of this? And then ambulance started to come, and I kind of realized, well, whatever happened, she didn't cut the tops of her legs and the top of her arms, because this is a big response. And someone said to everyone who was watching, everyone get in the house, get in the house. So they all corral us into this house, and we're kind of just sitting there silent for a while. And so they corral us into this house, and eventually after an hour or so, someone comes in and says, she's stable, she's alive, she's breathing, go back to your homes, return to normal. And then we all thought, whatever. And the next morning, wake up's at 8, but no one came to wake us up. So it was like 9 o'clock at this point. And Cody comes and he opens the door and he says, hey, today's going to be a long day. And I said, why? And he said, she's dead.
Wow.
And I never had anyone die in my life. And again, I wasn't close to Mac, but she was in my small group, and this was my first encounter with death. I had been a Christian for only 2 months at that point. I was still very new to the faith. And I guess now as we're winding down, I guess that was when I can say I got really serious about it. I started to, because that's when a lot of the real questions start to surface, is when you face the death of someone and you don't know where they are, and you're new to this religion, and you're young, and you got so many more questions. And the one thing you learn to value in that moment is the truth. You don't want to hear, oh my gosh, my angel's flying high, from someone who doesn't believe in heaven. And you really start to see people fetishizing, wherever she is. I'm really glad that she's in heaven being an angel, coming from people who've never been religious. And that's when I really start to seek the truth, and really started to, even at the age of 18, I just decided clearly the most important resource in this world is time and reality. And that kind of bled into my studies and where I am today.
Wow, and I think you really are one of the most faithful people that I know today, and your pursuit of truth and the way you go about sharing it in a very natural and very relevant and authentic way, really, I find that inspiring. So we'll definitely be back with Jack, to speak more about this truth and coffee.
Coffee, yes.
Well. So thank you very much for tuning in. Remember to subscribe, like, and tell us, whatever.